Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to our last workshop event we are hosting for the National Women's History Month. My name is Suelen Schneider de Maria, and I'm the host for today's event. Before I introduce you to our speaker, let me introduce you to our Center for Global Partnerships and Learning. If this is the first time you are hearing about our center, please allow me to provide you some information. The Center for Global Partnerships and Learning provides GSEP students with a myriad of services ranging from publication support, certificate programs, access to GSEP's academic journal, and a few other services. Our center also hosts events, info sessions, and workshops on various topics. I'm going to introduce you our speaker for this evening, how to overcome imposter syndrome workshop. Please know that I will be moderating the chat during the session, and we will have time for Q&A later on. Dr. Aasiyah Ghazi is an associate faculty at the University of Arizona Global Campus, teaching leadership courses in the Bachelors of Art in Business Leadership program with the Forbes School of Business and Technology. In addition to teaching, Dr. Ghazi is also a dissertation coach and professional coach and trainer, facilitating various leadership training workshops, courses, and seminars with individuals and corporations. She is the host of her own podcast called The Creative Women Leader, which can be found in all podcast listening platforms. Dr. Ghazi graduated from Pepperdine University in July 2021, obtaining her doctoral degree in organizational leadership. And she is currently back at Pepperdine earning her second doctorate, a PhD in global leadership and change. Dr. Ghazi's area of research is women in leadership and imposter syndrome. Her dissertation focused on women leaders in the engineering field, using the best strategies and practices to overcome the feeling of inadequacy and imposterism. Dr. Ghazi has also published her first leadership journal on Amazon called the Creative Leader Journal, and has a blog, Impostor Syndrome, which can be found on her website called Conquer Imposterism. Please welcome Dr. Ghazi.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Suelen, for that lovely introduction. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. So if all of you can put this on, I believe, speaker view, you would probably be able to see the screen. I know Zoom is a little bit different, but thank you everybody for coming today. I know some of you are coming in as guests from other places, and I'm just really excited that you're here. Now, with that said, let me go ahead and share my screen. And when I do share my screen, please let me know if you're able to see it. Just a thumbs up or something. Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So today we are going to be talking about how to conquer imposter syndrome. And this is going to be about an hour-and-a-half workshop. So I am planning on being here until 6:30. We will have answers and questions and answers at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. Here is the agenda for today's workshop. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a good overview of the imposter phenomenon as it's actually called. So there are several different names. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I'm going to call this imposter phenomenon because I actually believe in this as a phenomenon. Secondly, I am going to talk about my own personal experience of imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon. So I call it IP here. And I'm going to ask you, some of you all to also, if you would like, share your experiences, because I think it's good for us to share what we've been experiencing in regards to this, if we are experiencing it. I'm going to talk about how the imposter phenomenon begins, the type of personalities, and then I'm going to talk about the 4-step model that I created during my dissertation research process. Those 4 steps are accomplish, support systems, investment, and acknowledgement, as you see here. And then at the end, we'll have some time for questions and answers. I'm also going to make sure that I have the activities for you, so you'll all be able to do your activities as well. All right, let's go ahead and get going. So, what is imposter phenomenon or syndrome? So for those of you who are on video, and for those of you not on video, you can use the raise hand feature. Raise your hand and let me know if you know what the imposter phenomenon or imposter syndrome is. And if you don't know, then you don't need to raise your hand. So that way I'll know. Okay, I see a thumbs up there. I see some more thumbs up. Okay, great. And I know some of you probably do know about it, but haven't raised your hands. Inva and Usman and a few other people. Yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, so there are many of you that do know what imposter phenomenon is, and there are still some that might not know. So let's go ahead and discuss this really quickly. Number one, statistics show, and I did some research on this, but statistics show that 70% of our population in the world is going to experience some form of imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. More females than males that experience this phenomenon. So I'm saying this because the initial research that was done by Dr. Pauline Clance and Dr. Suzanne Imes was done on 150 women, high achievers who had high degrees, who were having positions in higher leadership. So some of them may have been CEOs, they may have been professors, emeritus professors, they might have had very high level type of positions. But in their study, Dr. Pauline Clance and Dr. Suzanne Imes found that these women that they studied really did not have the confidence in themselves. They felt that they were not good enough, which is one of the definitions for imposter phenomenon. They had this feeling that they were imposters, that they were frauds. They believed that they fooled others. And in that belief of fooling other people, they believed that they would be found out. They didn't feel like they were smart enough. They felt unintelligent. They happened to say that they received promotions or degrees, or they got into, for example, a school because it was just luck. It was just fate. It wasn't something that they worked towards achieving, although they did, but they didn't recognize that. And also in their study, the other feeling was inadequacy, that they just felt like they didn't know enough, or they felt that they were inadequate in what they were doing. They never really understood, the participants, they never understood why they even achieved the high degrees or the high leadership roles that they had in that time. Now, this was back in 1978. So imagine for the last 45 years nearly, we've been talking about imposter phenomenon and trying to understand what it is and why we feel the way we do when something comes up. Now, that's not to say that imposter phenomenon is the same for everybody. It's not. People are going to experience it in different ways, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So as you can see, I kind of have a little fake sign here because that's kind of like how people feel. Like they feel that they have the word fake written over their forehead. And so it's just this feeling of, I'm not good enough and I can't do anything about myself. Like, if you think about it, it's like losing your self-esteem and your self-confidence. And that's kind of like what these people were experiencing in this study. Now, let me give you a little experience about imposter phenomenon, because I believe in storytelling, and I believe that it's really important to know that in some form or fashion, we've all experienced something in our lives and we might want to share about it. So I'm going to share it here. Now, I have a little quote that I wrote. We all experience some form of imposter phenomenon, but we need to find strategies to help us cope with this. And that's kind of the reason why I decided to get really in on imposter syndrome, because I wanted to understand more about what it was, why we needed to cope with this. And in fact, I didn't know about imposter phenomenon until about a few years ago, actually. I was already at Pepperdine, And I started learning more about it because I wanted to go back and kind of see what I had been going through in my life. So here's the story. When I started looking for jobs right out of college, I did not think I was good enough to have any jobs. And I would literally look at these positions on Craigslist, on Indeed.com. At the time, we had Monster.com and all of these. And I would apply or think about applying, and I would go, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. I would read a job description. I could do it. I knew in the back of my head that I could do it. But there was something stopping me saying, no, but you can't do this. You're not going to be able to get this job. They're not going to interview you. Like, I literally psyched myself out. And so I would either not apply, or I would apply halfway, get scared, and leave and just stop the application process. So I couldn't find work because I was in my own way. That wasn't just it. There were other things in my life. When I was in my undergrad, I was not getting good grades. And I really felt like I was probably not good in math or statistics. It wasn't that I wasn't good at it. I realized later that I didn't have the type of support that I needed from, the professors I had, because I had professors that weren't really teaching math or statistics the way that I needed to learn. But it really did affect the way that I thought of myself, because I also dealt with family abuse. My mom and we lived with my uncle, and we lived with him for about 35 years of my life. And as I was growing up in the house, this was my mom's brother, I was constantly told I was stupid, I was lazy, I didn't know any better. I mean, I was being told all kinds of names. I was even told I was dumb. And although it wasn't often that I would hear it, when I did hear it, it sunk into me. And I think that was when I realized, oh, well, no wonder I've been feeling this way all these years. I've been hearing these things so much that I believed in it. Another thing that I also saw, and I put it in here, lack of support by family and community. I am Indian Pakistani, and we were raised within people within our community. I'm also Muslim, so we had a lot of Muslim Pakistanis and Indians, and of course, of other ethnicities and religions as well. But I never felt like I belonged in my community, because anytime I wanted to befriend somebody, I was constantly told I wasn't good enough, I was too fat, I was ugly. I mean, all kinds of horrible names. And while we say that that's bullying, the bullying actually affects us very much. We don't realize it until we start to see that. And I can say that because if anybody gave me a compliment, if somebody said to me, oh, you look really beautiful today, or, you did a great job on this project, I would not believe them. And in fact, I would start to think, oh, well, they're just saying that because they just want to be nice. But I realized later on that actually that wasn't the case. I had such a hard time taking compliments. That was something I realized later was also a part of imposter phenomenon, where the person experiencing this doesn't take in compliments. Like, they really literally think these kinds of things about themselves. But I was told this all the time from my own community. And I was also told this from my own peers, and from elementary all the way up until high school. The fact that you're being made fun of and everybody's kind of telling you the same thing, you start to believe in that. You start to go, wow, maybe I really am this person. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not smart. Maybe I'm not good looking. Maybe I am too fat. Maybe I'm not good enough to do anything. I'm not even good enough to get a job. So I kind of went through this. And then I also went through this part of having, the issue of not having enough confidence in myself. And I realized I wasn't setting boundaries with other people. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about in regards to boundaries. How many of you, just give me a thumbs up or raise your hand if you're on camera, how many of you understand what setting boundaries is? Yep, I see some thumbs up. I see some hands up. Yeah. I was literally going through that. I did not have boundaries set. So I allowed people to use me because I became a people pleaser. I wanted to make people happy. I wanted to be nice to everybody, of course. And I wanted to make sure people liked me because I didn't have friends growing up with everything that I was going through. So imagine all of these things, all these different dynamics, your environment, coming together where people are saying these kinds of things to you and making you feel like you really aren't even good enough to do anything or to even be around here, right? well, of course, when I learned about what imposter phenomenon was, I understood, oh, okay, it clicked. This is what I've been experiencing. The fact that every time I wanted to apply for a job, I just felt like this innate feeling of I'm not good enough, or feeling like, I might act like I know it all, but I don't know it all. Someone's going to say something to me about it. We're going to talk about the personalities. There are different personalities with imposter phenomenon. So I think you will all be interested in listening to that, only because it's something that really correlates with all the things that we went through. I also went through a bout of perfectionism, and I like to tell people I'm a recovering perfectionist. So I don't know if any of you could relate with that. I'm a recovering perfectionist in the sense that, God, I wanted everything to be perfect. And if it wasn't perfect, I would scrap it. I would start over again. It was not really a great thing. I don't want to say it was a nightmare, but it really was, because I went through so much of it that I had to start telling myself, no, Aasiyah, you can't do that. You really have to step back, and you have to start looking at yourself from a different point of view. And I think that's kind of when the healing started to begin for me, was when I stepped back to look at different points of view and to understand what was causing these issues for me. Why did I believe in myself in this way? And what could I do to work on myself, to increase my confidence, to increase my self-esteem, and to become more confident in the way that I do things without having to worry about being perfect or working alone and things like that. I mean, I even had an issue asking for help. So I know how it was to deal with all of that. And I want to take a few minutes, maybe a couple of people, up to 3 minutes. I would love for you to share your stories with me. If you want, and you don't want to unmute yourself, you can also put it in the chat. However, for me to go through chat on this thing will be a little bit difficult because I'm showing my screen. So please feel free to unmute yourself and give yourself a few minutes to share your story to see how well we relate with each other. The stage is open.
I'll share. This is Wendy Perkinson.
Let's go for it.
When you were talking, I was just thinking about just being a young person. And my mom, I loved the performing arts and I loved to dance. And so my mom put me in dance studio. That grew into competitive dance. And so I was launched into this whole competitive dance experience for just my adolescent years, through my teen years, through my college years. And so it was sort of a duality there, although it taught me to have confidence and to be able to perform on stage, which, gave me confidence in front of people when I had to do something, a performance. The duality behind it was the hard work and the constant work that it took to please the coaches and to please to win a competition. And, there was a lot that fed into it that was kind of negative for me. Everybody might not have taken it or interpreted it the same way, but just always, like you talked about, being perfect so that you can win, being perfect so that you can dance, doing it better the next time. And even with some of the things, the stretches, we used to stretch beyond places that you should be able to stretch normally. And so that stretched my life and the capacity of my life. And so I moved into this kind of competitive state after dance and in my adulthood. And I just kind of saw life like a performance. And when I didn't feel like I performed well, even if others feel like I performed well, if I feel like I wasn't A++ status, and all of that I just really wasn't doing my best. And so It was very difficult for me to live outside of the bounds of perfection. And so I am a recovering perfectionist, just like you.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Anybody else?
I can share. Hi, my name is Pam. And as you were talking, I had to I got off the video because it kind of brought tears to my eyes, because just experienced some of those things growing up, thinking I wasn't cute enough, I was too big, and then I was diagnosed with lupus. So I started taking steroids and that made it even worse. And then, I worked in the medical office for 18 years, just front office doing stuff. And then I got promoted. So with my promotion, I was working with a lot of our senior leaders. And I've been working for this company for 26 years. It's going on 27. But when I got promoted, I felt like I wasn't smart enough because I didn't have a degree, and I'm working with COOs, the CEO, and regional directors, and just everybody on so many different, just senior leadership. And I'm thinking, how can I, this Black woman from Compton, born and raised in Compton, how do I compare to them? Was feeling kind of like I wasn't capable. And then in 2018, I had a manager that really just had her foot on my head. So my confidence level even went down even more, So now I'm at the point where I'm trying to regain my confidence, because I got another promotion and I'm on a whole nother different level. But I'm seeing in this position that my confidence level within myself is not where I should be, even though I know I can do the work. And the work is easy, but I'm always second guessing myself. And I'm learning when I overthink it or second guess it, that's when I mess up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been there.
Definitely can relate. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your story, Pamela. You're with UAGC, right? You're with UAGC, right? You're one of my students.
Yes, I am. Yes.
Good to see you on. Oh my gosh. Thank you both, Wendy and Pamela, for sharing your stories. And I have time for even one more share if there's another person that would like to share their experiences. Yes, Usman, go for it.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here and sharing your journey and perspective. I think it takes a lot of courage, and I appreciate all you shared so far. I've struggled with perfectionism over the years and being self-critical, and I didn't realize this until grad school, sort of examining my own biases and blind spots through attending grad school and counseling, and realizing that a lot of it has to do with my experience in immigrating over here to the US from Pakistan when I was young, when I was in fourth grade with my family. And a lot of the messages and comments I had internalized back from middle school and just through growing up over here, and realizing that I felt the pressures and the need to assimilate versus sort of integrate. And I struggled with that over the years, and realizing the distinction between assimilating really and sort of feeling the pressure to conform versus integrating parts of my personal and my professional identity together to be able to express that in a way which is more comfortable with in my own skin. And so I've struggled with perfectionism and the need to sort of feel like I belong, and people pleasing, all of the above, because of, I think, my early experiences immigrating here and feeling the need to belong and fit into different boxes, and also being experienced a lot of discrimination and bullying back in school. My name being Usman and being Pakistani and Muslim post 9/11, and struggling with a lot of those different parameters and being able to come to terms with my own personal and professional identity. So I wanted to share that I think it is very common imposter phenomenon, and I echo the sentiments that I think it impacts a lot of us, and it's important that we're able to share in these spaces collectively to be able to build that sense of solidarity and talk about these things. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, no, thank you, Usman, for sharing that. And I can relate to all three of you. I relate to all three of you in everything that you're going through. Perfectionism, especially Usman. Oh my gosh. We might need to have a little coffee chat one day to talk about the perfectionism stuff, because I went through that so much. And I've learned a lot, and that's why I want to share this with all of you today. So let me also allow you all to share your stories in the chat. And what I'll do is we'll get back to the chat box. I know Sue Ellen is looking at the chat. So Sue Ellen, if you see any stories in the chat, feel free to let me know, and we'll share that, and we can, and I'll have you read it out for us.
Yeah, sure. Nobody shared the story yet. We were just thanking Wendy, Pamela, and Usman for sharing your great stories. So yeah, if anyone share your story, we will read it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So thank you for sharing your story. It's super powerful to hear, all of this. And I'm looking forward to hearing more. So like I said, share it in the chat and we'll go ahead and we'll read it out in just a little bit. Let's talk about how IP starts. How does imposter phenomenon start? You can see this video here of this girl coming up with different faces and unmasking. And it's kind of like that when we're thinking about imposter phenomenon, like when we're thinking about the different faces we might kind of put on, to try to, let's say, for example, hide these feelings or hide, what we know and what we might not know. And I think that this is just such a perfect example. This little video here is a perfect example of what we go through. So how does imposter phenomenon start? As I was talking about with my own story, childhood issues. And I know, Wendy, you were mentioning when you were younger, you loved dance and you wanted to be in that. And how old were you when that happened? I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, I started at 3 and, all the way through college.
Yeah. So, and so things like this can start happening for us in childhood. And as children, we don't know what we're thinking about. We don't know what we're, hearing. So we don't know what imposter phenomenon is at that moment. But that's kind of when, for some of us, it starts. For some people, their childhood may be so great. They have great parents, they have great support systems, and they might not experience it in their childhood, but they could experience it later on, maybe through a traumatic event or something that might happen that, that causes them to start thinking in a different way about themselves. So childhood issues is number one. And I would love for all of you to raise your hand if you had any of these kinds of family dynamics. Codependency. So having others kind of depend on you for things, kind of putting that pressure on you to have to take care of them. If that was something you dealt with, thumbs up or raise your hands in the video. Yeah, I see some of your thumbs up and raising your hands. Yeah. I see that. Oops, I did not want to go back to that slide yet. Hold on, we're not done. Mouse clicking here. Okay, so the other one was high expectations or neglect. Have any of you gone through high expectations or feelings of neglect by your parents? So high expectations meaning you got to get the best grades. You've got to do this. You got to do that. Yes, I see. Yes, I see a huge yes. I see thumbs up. Yes, Rachel, you have your hand raised. So go ahead and unmute yourself if you wanted to say something.
Oh, I was just saying yes. High expectations and that actually it was interesting because it wasn't like you should be able to do this. It was an automatic assumption. Like the grades are going to be here, your activities are going to be here, you're going to behave this way. Like it was just a done deal.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Exactly. So these are some of the family dynamics, like what Rachel just said. For some people, maybe the parents didn't really care. They kind of neglected them. I had a friend who told me that he had horrible parents in his childhood. And he said, my parents didn't even care. Like I would be out the whole day. They wouldn't even try to find out where I was at or what I was doing. That made me really feel sad to hear that. And so sometimes people are going through that. And I know for him that actually caused him to feel that, feeling of not being good enough, because to this day, he still struggles with it. And this was something that was one of the reasons why neglect. For some people, trauma. It could happen in childhood or later in life, and trauma could be any form of abuse. Because I know for me, I went through verbal, mental, emotional, and financial abuse. And those things really affected me in a lot of ways. For me to be able to get to where I'm at today took a lot of my own work on myself, on my own mindset. And trauma can come in different ways. So trauma, it can also start through our environment. Like, what kind of an environment are you in? How were you raised? The type of people that you're surrounded around. Sometimes we start feeling the imposter phenomenon when we're hitting a lot of barriers and challenges. So for example, women in leadership, minorities, people that have more challenges and barriers to kind of go through than maybe others, right? So what do we have to do to overcome these barriers and challenges? That's kind of where we're at when it comes to the imposter phenomenon and how it starts. And yes, Ted, I will definitely talk about resilience and imposter syndrome. We will talk about that in upcoming slides for sure. So thank you about that for mentioning that. Imposter transference. So this is a term I coined in my dissertation called imposter transference. Sorry, I'm trying to like talk today. Imposter transference, and you can see that I put a little TM because I need to trademark this term. I came up with it. Nobody's ever heard of it. I looked it up on Google. I'm like, nobody has this term. Perfect. But I say imposter transference because if you know about psychology, what happens is when people are telling you what they think your worth is, when they're telling you that you're not good enough in something, when they're telling you you can't do this, you can't do that, when they're telling you that you have these things that doesn't make you capable of attaining a job or getting an interview or things like that, that's called imposter transference. They're transferring their feelings about their own selves. They're projecting their selves onto us. So even though they may be saying that to us, it's not about us. That was something I had to learn a long time ago when I was constantly being made fun of. It was like, well, what is wrong with me? Why am I always being made fun of? And I started to realize later, well, it was never really about me. It was about them and their own insecurities. But what happens is people throw their own insecurities to other people, and that creates what I called an imposter transference. This was something that I put in my dissertation because my participants spoke about their managers kind of saying to them, oh no, well, you might not be good enough to do this job. We're going to give you this job to do. And the feeling of, really? Maybe I guess I'm not then? And then the questioning of yourself. Yeah. So I coined this term imposter transference, which is the same as like in psychology when you're talking with maybe a therapist or somebody else and they somehow transfer their feelings or their emotions onto you. That's kind of what this term kind of comes about with. Lack of support from others. So the fact that people don't believe you or believe in you. So you're saying, I'm going to start a business today and I'm going to be, consulting so-and-so. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And people tell you, are you sure you can do it? They question your ability. So they're not necessarily supporting you if they're questioning your ability. It's good to question. Of course, you want to have questions. You want to say, well, how are you going to do this? What are some of the goals you have put together? Where are you going to start with this? That's fine. But when you have somebody that's telling you, are you sure you can do this? I don't think you're going to be successful, or you're going to need a lot of money to start this business, for example. That's a lack of support. Then also another way an IP could start would be a lack of acknowledgement from your family, for example. You have family members that are not acknowledging your work. They're not acknowledging what you're doing. That also creates issues. And then of course, the fear of success and failure. So some of us might have a fear of success. We're so afraid that if we become successful, it's going to eat us alive, or we're so afraid of failing that we're never going to see success. So these two are interchangeable with each other. And so these bullet points can trigger imposter phenomenon. We might not even really realize it until later when we start to examine this a little bit more. And there's a lot of research and studies and books that discuss what how imposter phenomenon can start and what those issues could be. Dr. Pauline Clance and Dr. Suzanne Imes, when they did their initial paper on this, and they studied 150 women, that's what they found was there was all of these different dynamics. There's all of these different things that were really causing these women to not believe in themselves. Why am I going back to my agenda? Sorry, give me a second here. I'm using Canva, so don't mind me if I'm trying to maneuver it here. All right. I will get to questions and answers in just a little bit. So let me go ahead and do the personalities, and then Usman, I will come to you. Various IP personalities. So if any of you seeing these personalities right now can relate, I just did an imposter phenomenon community chat about, I think it was last Tuesday. And we had this infographic that you see in front of you. So I wanted to take this infographic that we use because I thought this was such a great infographic to show the different types of personalities that are out there that have been researched, which also kind of triggers the imposter phenomenon. So the first one is the genius. The genius cares about how and when these accomplishments will happen. They struggle to master a subject or a skill or that masterpiece. And if they can't like get that skill, if they're really struggling with it, it doesn't happen at the first try. They feel like they're failing, and it leads to the feelings of shame. And this is quoted out from the research studies that I was reading about, that it leads to feelings of shame, it leads to feelings of failure. The expert is someone who cares about how much they know and this is another form of perfectionism. They're like know-it-alls, right? They like to act like they know everything in the world. Don't tell them that they don't know something, because if they feel that they don't know something, it means that they failed. The soloist. They care about completing the work alone and have a hard time asking for help. I'm going to raise my hand because I was a soloist. I always had a hard time asking people to help me because the perfectionism also comes in. Perfectionism is very much connected with the soloist, because someone who's perfectionistic will have a hard time asking for help because they're going to say, well, this person's not going to know what they're doing and they're probably going to ruin my work. So I'd rather not ask for help. I've gone through it. It's not a fun feeling to have, and I've gone through it. Yeah. The perfectionist is another one, right? Everything has to be perfect. If it's not perfect, if there's even one tiny flaw, they got to start over again. And to them, that's failure. So anything that deems that they're going to fail, there's going to be some shame behind that failure, is kind of what's creating these imposter phenomenon personalities. The superhuman is another one. The amount of roles one can juggle and excel at. If they fail at one role, that equals shame and failure. So I don't know how many of you have been a superhuman, but I've been that person where I'm like, yeah, I'll do this. I'll swoop in and I'll help out. And, but I'm a student, I'm a daughter, I'm, somebody's sister or somebody's friend or somebody's, teacher or whatever. There's all these roles. And what ends up happening, and if you kind of notice a little theme here, which I don't say it in here, it's inherent though. Have you heard of the term burnout? That's kind of what ends up happening with each and every one of these. At the end of the day, these personalities will exhibit burnout. How far can you go into being a superhuman? How far can you go into being a perfectionist? At some point, doing things over and over again, or not asking for help and continuing to pile up information, that will actually create more burnout for us. We'll actually become more overwhelmed. Yeah, so in the chat, Rachel, if you're raised with incredibly high expectations, you're also likely taught that asking for help is a weakness. Exactly. So it's so hard for people to ask for help. And if they do, it's just like, oh my God, that means I didn't know anything because I have to ask for help. But asking for help is actually a huge strength. So please be open to asking for help. There's nothing wrong with that. I had to learn that too the hard way. When I finally realized, no, I can't do this. I need to ask for help. I need to say that I need this. And it's okay to tell people what you need, because generally and inherently as people, we are all available and here to help each other. But if we don't ask for help, how are we going to be able to do that? So yeah, you said it sounds like my teenager, right? Let me tell you something about that. I'm glad you pointed that out. So I see this kind of happening with younger people when we're kind of younger, we're, let's say our early teens going into our, early adulthood and so on. We really do exhibit more imposter feelings than we do as we get older. I in fact had a participant that told me, actually several participants that told me in my study, that as they got older, they start to kind of be more comfortable with themselves and within the role that they were in, they actually started to feel less and less imposter and more confidence. It's not to say that this is going to happen with everybody. Some people might continue to exhibit imposter feelings and again, it goes back to, you know, these issues, if they're not resolved, then of course you're going to, you know, continue seeing that. But if you're able to resolve it, which we're going to talk about today, you know, then you'll be able to overcome these personality types as well, and you'll be able to move forward with that. So with that said, I just want to mention the 4-step model of conquering inadequacy and imposterism. Now, the 4-step model that I came up with, this was my model for my dissertation. And I know some of you that are on here who were with me and know about my dissertation. I believe, Jeanette, you're on. I see you. So, you know, we had to create models based off of our study and what we received from our participants. And after coding my results, you know, a realization came about. Obviously, the imposter phenomenon is not a psychological issue. It is not a syndrome that you will actually find, a true syndrome that you will actually find in a psychology book, in the diagnostics manual that they have. There are things that would lead someone to believe that they're imposters, which they, you know, which in psychology they are discussed, but it doesn't mean that that syndrome is a real syndrome. That's why I'm calling it a phenomenon, because it's not a true syndrome. But what I realized is that this is very much a mindset issue. So how many of you can raise your hands or give me a thumbs up if you believe that this is a mindset issue? That this is really affecting the way we think. Okay, I see a few thumbs up. All right, great. I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up. Yeah. Because, sorry, I keep going back to this side. Okay. Because it is true. We are going through, you know, a lot of mental feelings, right? These emotions, these feelings are coming from a part of our brain. And that's why I wanted to create this model, because the model talks to us about this being a mindset issue. This being that we have to start learning how to reframe our mindset. We have to start reframing the way we think about ourselves and the way we think about things. So we're going to talk about these 4 steps today. I'm going to talk about how we're going to overcome the inadequacy and imposterism feelings. The first step is accomplish, which is about goal settings, getting goals put together. We're going to talk about that. Then I'm going to talk about support systems, where we're putting together systems of support for us. We're going to talk about investing in ourselves. And then we're going to talk about acknowledging ourselves, celebrating ourselves. Because I think that's the big thing we all skip, is celebrating even the tiniest milestones that we get. And I'm guilty of that. Right? I had to learn the hard way too, that, hey, listen, you can celebrate the small things. If celebration means I get to have a can of Zevia, and that's how I'm going to celebrate myself, then I will celebrate myself, right? If I choose to celebrate myself by going out to have lunch with some friends, or, you know, I don't know, getting a nice massage, you know, I'm going to do that because I'm celebrating that success that I achieved. So we're going to talk more about that. And we're going to talk about reasons why we don't celebrate success as well. And I do have activities that we're going to come up with. So I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to do these activities together. And I want to be mindful of time. I know it is 5:46. We still have some time, so I want to make sure we get to everything. Absolutely, Samuel. Celebrating yourself authentically is true freedom. Wendy, you were saying, I wonder if sibling placement can lead to one of these IP personalities. You know what? That's a great question, and I'm pretty sure there is research out there about this, and we'll probably have to find some research on it. Absolutely. All right. Accomplish. So this is the first step of the model that I just shared with you, that I created. So my participants, when I did the research study, the reason for my research study was because I wanted to find the best practices and strategies on overcoming the feeling of inadequacy and imposterism. And of course, like I mentioned before, 70% of the world's population is going to experience imposter phenomenon at some point in their lives. It might not be in the way that you and I might experience it. They might experience it in different ways, but they will. And so we want to make sure that we can change this, because we don't want to be part of the 70%. We want to be part of that 30% that doesn't necessarily experience it in that way. So the first step is accomplish. Set goals, find a mentor, and create steps toward accomplishing goals. So let's say one of your goals is to get a promotion. Or you might have a goal to get a job if that you're, of your dreams, something that you really want, or your goal is to get a higher degree. Maybe you want to get a master's or a doctorate. That some of you are in a doctorate program. Some of you finished your master's, and some of you are in undergrad. Whatever that goal is that you have, you want to set it, and then you want to find mentors. You want to find people that have accomplished that same goal, ideally, so that you're able to understand how you can get to that goal. So sometimes what happens is when we are dealing with imposter phenomenon, we kind of forget about what we want to accomplish. We're so busy kind of thinking about what we don't know. We're so busy thinking about something that we're not good at. And we're so hyper focused on that we're not focusing on the goals that we set for ourselves. I wanted to put that out there because I want you all to kind of think about that for a moment, and to just kind of, have that seep in. This is also a part of resilience. And I know, Tat, you were just talking about resilience and you wanted me to mention that. I'm going to talk about resilience as well. Resilience, I went through, let me talk a little bit about resilience. Okay. Let me give you my story. I went through a major event back in 2019, way before the pandemic happened. So what ended up happening was one of my uncles, one of my mom's brothers, he illegally took the house that I was the beneficiary of and a trustee of for my other uncle, who I had been living with for 35 years, who was now in a nursing home because he was dying and he wasn't going to survive, but he had to be there. So his brother wanted to take the house away from him and from us, devised a plan. I don't know what he did, but somehow he got attorneys. He had forged some signatures and started to scare us with, 60-day notices to leave. And I'm like, what is this? Now, at the time, I didn't have a job or the money to get an attorney to fight him. And when the time came, he illegally evicted my mom and I out of the house. This was in mid-2019. We had no place to go. I didn't have money other than what I would receive from my financial aid refund. I didn't have anything. And with my mom in tow, I was like, what am I supposed to do? But here's the big deal. Here's a big part of resilience. You need to have faith that there is a higher being. It doesn't matter who or what you believe in, right? That there's a higher being that has your back, that is taking care of you. And because I had that belief, and I didn't think about, oh my God, I'm not good enough. What am I going to do? How can I do this? I didn't have time to think about me being an imposter, that I wasn't good enough. I was going through something that meant I needed to act really quickly, and I needed to do something. So I got my mom and I a hotel room at the extended stay. We started talking to our contacts. We started talking to people, and we were able to find an association out here in Lomita, where I'm at, or in Lomita, I'm in Torrance, but in Lomita, and they came through and they helped us. They helped us to find shelter. And I was also able to get a job thanks to Laura, who's here today, and our friend Melissa, who helped me. At that moment, when this job opportunity came, I didn't think about, I'm not good enough to get this job. I'm not good enough to be a training coordinator. I'm not good enough to work in this software company. I didn't think that way. I said, okay, I'm going to go for it. So when things happen and you are dealing with something in your life that is huge, trust that the imposter phenomenon goes down the drain real quick, because you don't have a choice but to think better of yourself to get to where you need to be. That job came through. I took it. I said, yes, I took it. And, here I am. I was in the middle of my first doctorate program. I was trying to get things settled. And now I'm in a nice 2-bedroom apartment with my mom. We're taken care of, and I have not one, but 3 different positions. Talk about overcoming the imposter syndrome. But resilience is really, you got to stand up and you have to fight through all of these emotions and feelings. And you have to say to yourself, listen, this is not what's going to happen. I need to go through, and I need to do this. I need to push forward. I can't let anyone take that away from me. I can't let myself take that away, right? We can get into our own way because of the imposter phenomenon. We don't want to go through that. So trust me, I learned a lot of lessons when it came to quickly overcoming the imposter syndrome of I'm not good enough to get a job to, okay, I'm going to have this job, not a little tiny, part-time thing. It had to be something full-time, and it happened, And so at that moment, that was when I realized I need to set some goals. And I started to look for people that were mentors. And I started to create my goals towards getting my doctorate, towards, becoming a professor, towards, accomplishing myself to become, to start having my own business, and things of that nature. And those are all things that I'm still working towards. But that's kind of what happens when you gain resilience. You start to forget about the imposterism. So I want you to kind of think about this for a moment. What do I want to accomplish? This is a question for you. What do you want to accomplish? Do you want to set goals? Do you want to find mentors or coaches in your own industry that you're working in? Do you want to work on your mindset? Do you want to reframe thoughts? And I do want to mention this. We are not always experiencing imposter syndrome in everything we do. Please note that. Because in some parts of our lives, we know what we're doing and we feel really good about that. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. We don't always experience this imposter phenomenon. It might happen in some instances. It could happen in something like maybe somebody might feel like they're not good enough to, train somebody on a software. But in other instances, they're perfectly fine with everything else. They don't have an issue, right? So we got to think about that. All right. We're going to get to this activity. So this is our first activity. So if you got pen and paper on you, or if you want to use your laptop or your computer, your desktop, whatever you want to do, go for it. I think this would be good if you had pen and paper, because handwriting actually helps your mind to remember things. Please think about this in removing limiting beliefs, right? Because part of goal setting, part of working towards our accomplishments is to remove the limiting beliefs that we created because of all of the things we just talked about: childhood issues, trauma, environmental, all of these things. So I want you to take a piece of paper and pen and list 3 to 5 things you're competent in or where you perform best at. And just kind of write in, well, why you excel in these areas. So I'm going to wait for all of you to go ahead and do that. So go ahead and do that. And when I start seeing people's eyes coming up, those of you on video, I'll know that you have that done. Or if you are done and you're not on video, please just hit the raise hand button and let me know when you're done. So I'm just going to give everybody like a couple of minutes. Just think about like, what are the things I'm really, really good at? I'm a fast typer. I can type almost up to 120 words per minute. That's a competent area for me. I'm good at writing. I can write papers, books, journals, right? I'm competent in that, right? Think about that. Think about anything and everything that you're competent in. And you want to definitely kind of ask, or answer, why do you excel in these areas? Like, for example, maybe you excel at dancing because it's something that you enjoy. Like, you were talking about before, Wendy. Yeah. So whenever you're done, just feel free to raise your hands or put the hand up sign on Zoom. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Wendy. Jeanette, thank you, Jeanette. Alejandra, thank you. Rachel. Okay. Perfect. Usman, Tet, Malaysia. Awesome. Okay, great. So I'm seeing that about more than half of you are pretty much done with this first part. Okay. Now let's do the next part. Now we look at the triggers, right? So sometimes we might be really great and all of a sudden we'll feel a trigger. Someone says something to us or something happens at work or something that might trigger that imposter phenomenon to come out. So I just want you to think about any recent moment in time where you felt like you were a fraud or maybe you weren't good enough, you know, and just kind of write about how that made you feel. Did you feel intense fear? Were you hesitant or avoidant with getting that work done? You know, like for example, I remember I was being asked to, you know, do a training a while back about a software that I really didn't know much about. And I did have intense fear because I didn't know anything about the software. So I had to go in and I had to figure out what to do, or I had to ask somebody else to train that person in that specific software that I wasn't aware of. So it would be really interesting to know what those triggers are. Now, if you feel like you want to share this in the chat box, you can go ahead and do that and we will definitely get to it. Okay, great. I have 3 of you raising your hands. Does that mean you're all done? Is that what it means? Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Yeah, so when you're done with that, with the triggers, like we're talking about your triggers, you know, in writing about it, yep, raise your hands or thumbs up, or if you're on video, you can put your thumbs up, I'll see it. Okay, I see it. All right, perfect. And for purposes of time, I'm going to get to questions and answers around our last slide. We're going to get to questions and answers. I want to give us some time to really work on these activities and just, you know, for us to kind of discuss these steps. Cool? Awesome. I love those little signs, Lori.
From an insane Tony Robbins event I just did.
I love it. Oh my gosh. All right. Okay, so you guys are, let's go ahead and go to the next one. We have another activity. So you are all pretty much done with kind of writing out some stuff from activity 1, right? Okay, I see some thumbs up. All right, cool. Activity 2 is the mindset, because I really kind of want us to think about how we can maybe reframe some of the negative thoughts we have in our mind. This really kind of comes into confidence, right? When we're thinking that we're not good at something, we lack the confidence in something, we have these negative thoughts that come out and affect us. Here's the thing about negative thoughts. We innately have these negative thoughts because it's a mechanism for our brain to protect us from it. This is an ancestral thing, right? So ancestral meaning that we have the flight, fight, and freeze, right? So when we're stressed out, we're either running away, we're standing there frozen, or we're fighting. And naturally, our brain is programmed to protect us. And so we have negative thoughts because it's kind of making us think about different scenarios, right? We think about which we don't want a predator to come after us. We don't want to be prey. And so our mind will start to constantly think negative thoughts. Oh, well, what if this happens? Well, what if that happens? And a lot of what ifs. I don't know about you, but I'm not a fan of what ifs. I don't like to know, well, what if an earthquake happens and this happens? No, I don't want to think it's probably going to happen, but why do I want to think about these negative thoughts? You know? So in this activity, what are the negative thoughts you have in your mind? Right? Like what kind of thoughts come to your mind when you think about yourself, when you think about your work? And we can call these automatic negative thoughts, ANTs. Automatic negative thoughts are things that like we just automatically just start to say think something negative. It's an automatic thing. When that happens, we want to kind of challenge ourselves. So I want you to write out maybe 3 thoughts. How about we do this instead of 3 to 5, just to set about 2 to 3 thoughts for time's sake. And when you identify those thoughts, I want you to ask yourself the following questions. And in fact, you know, I think this exercise actually might even be good if I have somebody actually doing this live with me. So anybody willing to unmute themselves and maybe give me a negative thought that they've had that we can go through while you all work on it. We can have somebody do that. Anybody brave enough?
I can go.
Okay.
Let me see so I can be on camera. I just submitted a paper. So my first thought was it wasn't good enough. I could have done more. I didn't check this. I didn't check that. I mean, like, 20 questions, like right away. So
yeah. Okay.
That was my first.
Yeah. So you have this thought about, you know, your paper and you just submitted it and you're thinking, I don't know how well I did, or I don't think I did so well. Right? Okay. Well, let me ask you this question. What evidence do you have to create this negative thought?
I don't have any. Because I've never submitted a paper like that. So I don't know. It was my first time submitting something like that to that magnitude. So I truly do not know. Like, I don't have a feedback for me to create that. And I also don't have any experience for me to say that, well, I'm good, I did good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. So you don't have any evidence. What about the second one? What is the actual data behind this thought to support this?
There is none. That's the thing. It's like either or. It's the first time that I submit something like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt good the moment I submit it. And then I go back, it's not very wise to do so when you go back and kind of go back and look at it and you just start criticizing yourself.
Yeah.
That it wasn't good enough. I could have done more. Why didn't I just pay more attention to this or that? I mean, there's a million things that I could have done, but I did what I did. And I was just not happy with that being good enough.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. All right. So the next question is, what happens when I compare myself to another person? Are you comparing yourself to other people right now? Or do you feel like you're kind of like in the same boat?
I'm not, no, because there's no, I mean, I read other people's paper, but not in the same content. I mean, it's just every research is different. Every project is different because it's catered to exactly what I'm doing and what my research is.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's no way to compare that. That's the thing.
Right. Right. Because, you know, then the next question would be, is it appropriate for you to compare yourself? And in this case, probably your answer would be,
ooh, I've never actually asked that question.
So
no, I don't think I've gone that far for me to actually to think that, oh, this person is better, or this paper is better, or this research is better. So yeah, I haven't gotten that far when it comes to the questions to ask the right questions.
Good. And so the last question is, what other ways can I look at the situation causing me to believe I'm not good enough?
What other ways? I don't actually have to think about that. I truly have to, because I don't know what other ways I can look into to cause into. I set myself for success, meaning that I did my research, I did my work. I set up all my appointments for the paper to be good, to be a successful paper. And I still didn't feel confident enough to think that it was a great project that I submitted and that I'm proud of.
Yeah.
Until I feedback to validate me that it was, either or. To prove me wrong or to prove me right.
Yeah. Yeah. So these questions are good because it kind of gets you to think. Thank you so much, Inva, for working on this this activity with me. Excuse me. It is. So here's the thing. You want to ask yourself these questions because a lot of times we just create these negative thoughts and it's like a vicious cycle. And when we reframe our mind to start to look at our thoughts and say, okay, well, actually, maybe, do we really have the evidence? Do we really know? Do we actually have solid proof and data? We really don't. So why are we thinking these negative thoughts? And even if there is some type of data or some type of evidence, is that actual evidence really just, is it truth? Or is it just somebody's opinion? Because there's a difference between fact and opinion. And one thing, and this is something I would do too, is compare myself to other people. Oh, this person did something better than me, or this person, can, wow, they have, a nice, ability to write this paper, or this person knows how to do makeup and I don't know how to do makeup. So if I'm comparing myself, the comparison stuff is going to actually really work against us. So instead of comparing yourself, how about thinking, well, if this person can do it, I can do it. And maybe using that person as a way for you to up-level your own self, right? So reframing your mind, reframing the way you think about yourself and the way you think about your situation and the way you think about things. Yes, I see a lot of people are saying that they agreed with you, Inva. They were feeling the same things that you've been feeling. Absolutely. So let's talk about support systems. This is actually one of my favorites in this model. Our support system is really our circle of influence. Who are the people that support us? We want to choose the people that are in our lives very wisely, because you don't want people in your lives that are ready to pounce on you and put you down the minute you say, oh, I've got an idea, or let's do this. You want to look at those people that are 100% there to support you. They could even relate with you. So the people that are in your support systems could be your friends, good friends, people that are going to be there for you. And I can tell you, when I went through what I went through in 2019, I had a lot of friends coming for me, standing up for me, being there for me. And I knew these were people that were my support systems, because they would be there for me through anything and they would help me through whatever it was. And if I talked to them and I said, listen, I can't do this, I'm not good enough for this, they would turn around and say, Aasiyah, look at what you've done. They would have to remind me of my accomplishments if I didn't remember it, right? And that's what you want from your support system. You want people to remind you of something that you may have forgotten, because you're so busy doubting yourself that you may have forgotten the things that you've actually done. So it's important to look at who our support systems are. Look at your friends, your family, your relatives, colleagues, mentors, coaches, anybody, right? Support systems are important for us to be successful, and thus it's important for us to help us to overcome imposter phenomenon, because we don't have to think about, who can we talk to about what we're going through. We can talk to our support system and they will tell us what they're seeing. They will be honest with us. They will be truthful. And even though it's not mentioned on my slide, you are a support system for other people. So please also know that your words will carry weight for that person. So if you're looking for support, you should also be the support for somebody else when they're telling you, I've got an idea, or they want to share how they're feeling with you, right? So we have another activity for you. This one is a really fun activity. Exactly, Usman. Choose people who choose you. And Wendy says, my favorite quote, a good friend is one who will remember the lyrics to the soundtrack song of your life when you have forgotten the words. Exactly. And those are the type of people you want in your life. So this is a great segue to the exercise, because I heard the word dream team from somebody. And so I wanted to, I just love that word so much. I'm like, oh, I got to use this. So I wanted you to look at this exercise. Your dream team are those people who you want supporting you. So please do the following. Okay. I want you to take about a minute and write out a list of people in your life who actively support you 100%. That list could include anybody, friends, family, your children, your colleagues, coworkers, mentors, coaches, professors, teachers, anybody. And your list might be a big list and it might be a small list. Some people might only have 5 people that they really have as part of their team. But think about those people that have been in your life, who are actively with you 100% of the time. Maybe they've been with you through childhood. Maybe they've been with you through college years. Maybe they just recently met with you, became good friends with you, and have been supporting you all the way through. Okay. And then I also want you to kind of write out, who do you share your feelings with when you feel the imposter phenomenon? So if you are, going through those feelings, those emotions, the fact that you're unable to validate the fact that you are able to do the things that you want to do. So you share with somebody, well, I can't do this. Are these the people that are going to come to you and say, you know what, I've been there. I can relate with you. And let me tell you, what you're thinking about, what your feelings are, yeah, I totally relate. But I also want to tell you and remind you about what your accomplishments have been. You don't know how many times my friends have had to tell me, Aasiyah, you just became a doctor. Why are you sitting here doubting yourself? When I would say something and go, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can write a book about this topic. Everyone else is writing this book. Aasiyah, you can do it. So when I hear that from my support team, I know that these are people that are in my life. And think about this. This is your dream team. So on the top of your paper, write out dream team and put together this dream team. And what I'd love for you to do tonight, whenever we get off of our workshop, is to send a text message to people that are part of your team, dream team, a message, either a text message or an email. I don't know, Facebook message them, Instagram message them. People use that all the time. Whatever way you contact your dream team, let them know that they're a part of your team and why. And thank them for always being there for you. And remember that you are also going to be part of somebody's dream team as well. So make sure that you are that person as well that supports your friends, your family, whoever it is that you are a part of in your own circle of influence. You're their circle of influence. You want to make sure you're also supporting them. You're also they're also able to share their feelings with you, that they're also able to include you in their dream team. Okay. So while you're all working on this activity, I'm going to move on to this next one, which is called investment. And I know you see a bunch of quarters with some green stuff growing on top of it, but we're not talking about investment in money. We're talking about investing in ourselves. Investing in ourselves means that we are developing ourselves, we're developing our skills and who we are as leaders. So let's say you are at your job and you are given a promotion. And part of that promotion means you might need to learn Adobe, right? So I have a friend, actually, I'll share this with you. One of my friends, she's gonna go through an interview process for a job. And she said one of the things that she's been asked to know is Adobe. She's like, I don't know how to use the Adobe programs, like Adobe Acrobat or the PDF. How do you do all of that? So I told her, I said, listen, I'll get online with you on Sunday and we'll talk and I'll help you out with, learning what Adobe is because I know how to use it. So she wants to develop her skills because she's like, if I don't know Adobe, they're probably not going to hire me. And again, we kind of go back to these train of negative thoughts. Oh, they're not going to hire me if I don't know this. I'm not going to get the promotion if I don't have the skill, or they're asking me to, do this, but I don't know how to do X, Y, and Z because I've never done it before. So sometimes when we get those kinds of calls to do something and we don't know about it, it can make us kind of feel a little inadequate. But when you're investing in yourself, you can learn those skills. You can pick up on these things. In fact, investing in yourself helps you to overcome the imposter syndrome or the imposter phenomenon, as we're calling it too, because you get to meet people that are like-minded and they're just like you, where they're, going through the same things as you. You're both working together. You're both in the same industries. You both might have things in common, and you can meet those kinds of people in associations you join. So some of the ways you can invest in yourself is joining associations and clubs in your field. purchasing a course or taking some classes online and learning new things. Coaching, therapy, and journaling are also ways to invest in your development. Volunteer time in nonprofits to gain skills and help others. That's another way to invest in yourself. In fact, I have a poll. So I'm just going to ask this poll here because I had one poll I was supposed to ask earlier, completely forgot because I got so into the whole presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll here. And if you can all see it, go ahead and answer these questions. It's multiple choice. So let me know, what are some of the ways you've invested in yourself? And, you know, how has that happened for you? Are all of you able to see the poll? Yes? Okay, I see some nods. Okay, good. And I'll wait for all of you to answer that. Awesome. I'm seeing some good stuff. So 83% of you said taking classes, courses, certifications. Okay. And then of course, the next highest are books and articles, self-help, leadership development, industry-related books, etc. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Journaling is the next one. Yep. I see life coach, hypnotherapist, or a therapist. I wrote hypnotherapist because I am a certified clinical hypnotherapist, except I don't practice putting people into deep sleep anymore. All right. So I'm going to end the poll in another 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Awesome. So I'm going to end the poll here now. We have 88% who take classes, courses, and certifications, 75% books and articles on self-help, leadership development, or other types of books. We have joining associations in your industry. We have some people who are my Toastmasters. Okay, if you're Toastmasters, put it in the chat. I'm an avid Toastmaster. Some of you are have hired life coaches or therapists. Okay, great. I love it. I love it. So I'm going to share the results with all of you so you can all kind of see what those results are as we move on to the next slide, which is all about accomplishments. So whenever you feel that you're not good enough in something because you might not know, let me go ahead and stop sharing here now. If you feel that you don't know, something, you don't have a skill set, rather than kind of going back and saying, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, or it was just lucky that I happened to be here, so I got this job, but I don't know what I'm doing. Well, then go and invest in some courses, LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, whatever you can do, so you can get yourself to that point where you feel good about yourself because you know the knowledge that you have. Now, this last one is important. We're going to talk about acknowledgements, and then I'm going to leave the last 5 minutes for questions and answers because I want to make sure that we end on time. But if people do want to ask and we end on at 6:30, I will still be around for an extra 5 minutes. Okay. All right. So acknowledgement. A tiny accomplishment is a huge deal and should be celebrated with pomp and rigor. What does that mean? Celebrating ourselves is extremely important. Thank you for that heart, Lori. Celebrating ourselves is so important because we don't take the time to celebrate ourselves. Please raise your hand or put up the thumbs up or whatever and let me know. Do you celebrate yourselves for every little tiny accomplishment you've achieved or no? I just saw you nodding your head, no, Lori. Okay, you and I have to talk.
You know what? The second you get something done, it's almost like you're racing to the next thing.
Right. And most of us, and how many of you all can feel that same way? What Lori just said. Yeah. Pamela, Wendy. Yeah. I'm seeing a bunch of heads. I'm seeing some thumbs up. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yes. It can be really hard to celebrate when we just finish one thing and move on to the next. We need to make it a habit of when we finish that specific project, celebrate. It could just be for that 1 hour, but as soon as you finish that one project, get up and do something fun to celebrate. Like, yes, I did it. I finished my project. Let me move forward. Let me celebrate. So what do you do to celebrate? Maybe a nice dinner, maybe talking to one of your friends, maybe a nice movie to take, take a break, something fun, something that you want to do for yourself, Many of us, especially women, and this is true because this is research and I've read about this, many of us, especially women, don't always celebrate our success. Why is it that we don't celebrate our success? This could go back to the fact that maybe we might have not been acknowledged by our peers, by our parents, or by the people that we work with. But even if they don't acknowledge us, you have the duty to acknowledge your own self for the things that you're doing. We're going to talk a little bit about why some people don't always celebrate success in a minute. The other thing is we sometimes downplay our success for a multitude of reasons. We really do. Like Lori, you just said, yeah, I just finished one thing and we're, and then we go to the next. So in a way, you kind of downplayed what you just finished successfully by saying, I'm moving on to the next one now. Instead of taking that moment to just close your eyes and breathe.
I think a lot of women especially don't think they deserve it. So even when they accomplish something, they just kind of move on.
Exactly.
It's the minimal, it's the low bar.
Yeah. You just hit the nail on the head. Exactly. Exactly. But we have to start changing that. And that change begins with us today. Right? So here are some reasons we might not celebrate success. We don't often celebrate achievements because we might have limiting beliefs around discussing our success. So for example, if I'm saying, look, I finished my doctorate degree and here's my dissertation and I'm so proud. And here's this book that I got my chapter published in and I'm really proud about myself for doing that. And if I say that, someone's going to look at me and go, oh my gosh, she's bragging. What's up with her being a show off? Right? Pamela, you're nodding your head because you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm sure a lot of you who are not on video, but I could see all of you, I can see the thumbs up. Yeah, I see it. Exactly. We are so limited because of what we're being told. Oh, you're bragging. Oh, shush. You know what? That's great. You did that. We don't need to worry about it. I was just watching this Pakistani soap opera because I do watch soap operas sometimes with my mom. I was watching this Pakistani soap opera. There's this woman who's extremely controlling of her son and now her son's wife. And in one of the episodes, they were kind of doing a flashback of when the son was a little boy, and he comes home and he's like telling his mom, look, I got an A in class. And he was so happy and he wanted to celebrate with her. And instead she yelled at him and reprimanded him for even talking about it. And I saw that and I went, wow, I could see why somebody who feels that they're not being acknowledged and celebrated, and instead they're being put down, later on in life don't want to celebrate their achievements. They just kind of feel like, oh, it's okay. Who's going to celebrate with us anyway, right? That might be the belief. So limiting beliefs around discussing success due to it sounding like we're bragging, challenges and barriers about success. So there are gender, societal, and cultural norms which can prevent us from celebrating our success. Why? Right? We're trying to push through these barriers, but sometimes what ends up happening is we continue to think about the barriers that exist rather than thinking about what we just did to break a barrier. And maybe sometimes in culture, we're kind of told, oh yeah, no. Women are not allowed to celebrate this. Women shouldn't be doing that. That's a good question. Would over coddling or over acknowledging during childhood also be a factor in IP? And that could be, absolutely, because sometimes when it's overdone, then that person who does accomplish something might not feel like they really have anything to celebrate. They're like, whatever, we did it. We know our parents are going to be proud of us. We know everyone's going to, we know everyone's going to like it. So whatever, we're going to move forward now. Like they kind of just don't, they're so done with that because it was so over celebrated. But it could also be the opposite. Sometimes if you're so over celebrated and you're used to that over celebration by other people, and then you go somewhere and you're working in another place, or you're, in a whole different situation, maybe you got married into a family where they don't do that kind of stuff and your family does. And then you want to celebrate something and everyone is like, oh, it's not a big deal. That can also affect people. That can also affect us celebrating. So the next time we might not feel like we even want to say anything because, well, I'm going to tell my mom and dad, but if I tell my husband's mom and dad, or I tell my wife's mom and dad, they might not care because, they don't celebrate the way we do. So those are all things, they're all a part of the cultural, societal, and gender norms that we see. Oh, yes, I'm gonna have
Sorry, I just wanted, I just thank you for that, Dr. Ghazi. The reason why I asked that is because, I'm raising a teenager who was a very strong dancer. And I call her now, she's retired from dance. She got accepted into Alvin Ailey. She was really, so she's good. But, I think it's that whole affirmation, there was, and I probably should have seen it. But there was that over coddling and over acknowledgement from various family members. And when I didn't acknowledge it, because it was like, okay, you're great, but you're not, so then when she went to go to a performing arts school, she wasn't the best one. Her motivation just went down.
Yeah.
So that's where, and because the imposter syndrome, I think, or sorry, the imposter, oh my gosh, phenomenon.
It's called all these different
names. Really hit hard, because it's almost like, well, I'm not good then, because I was the best and I got the lead roles, and now I don't, because there will always, and I keep telling her, there will always be better people. There will always be more smarter, more beautiful, but that doesn't mean that you are not worthy. So I think that's where I was really just interested, because a lot of it was slack, but I wonder if the opposite of it was true as well.
Yeah, I mean, and in both terms, it sounds like what it is extreme, right? Because you can either overdo it and that person kind of maybe starts to not really, or either to get used to it, and then when they see other people are not doing that for them, that can make them lose their motivation, or they might not even have any of that, and then they start to see people celebrating them and they're like, what is this? I don't know about this, right? So yeah, it's interesting, these dynamics that we kind of end up having. And again, this kind of goes back to these norms that are being created within our family system, within our gender, societal, and cultural norms as well, which could end up becoming a barrier. And then, of course, the mindset. Sometimes we don't celebrate because we're kind of thinking about, and thank you so much for sharing the story about your daughter and what she's going through. So the mindset is the negative thoughts that, we're lacking self-confidence and self-esteem, or we have limiting beliefs from others for imposter transference. And then, of course, we have trauma or traumatic experiences. So like we talked about earlier, the fact that maybe we might continually accept the challenges or barriers, or we might have these traumatic experiences from things that have happened to us. These are probably reasons that we just don't take that time to celebrate these accomplishments that we've done. And I always say, even the smallest of your goals, right? Like if your goal is to walk, let's say 10 miles this week, and you got the chance to walk 1 mile today, celebrate that 1 mile. If you only walked half a mile, celebrate that. Celebrate every little milestone, because that's what's going to encourage you to move forward with yourself. Yeah. All right. And so let's go on to, this is the last part here that I just want to give everybody a reminder of. Achieve self-confidence and higher sense of self-worth by applying your learnings from today's workshop. So I would love for you, that's my call to action for all of you. Apply the 4 steps that I just discussed. Apply the learnings from today's workshop. Remember to celebrate every achievement and know that you are absolutely good enough, and even more than that. With that said, it is 6:30 on the, well, a little bit more than 6:30 on the dot. I just want to say thank you. And I want you to all, think about subscribing to my email list if you would like to do that. I follow me on Instagram, connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love for all of you to to connect with me and just be a part of that circle. And of course, I am working on my blog on conquerimposterism.com. So I'm going to put that all on my website soon. So I would love for you to just subscribe to my email list if that's something that you can do. My link tree is right here, linktree, I guess, .ee/Dr. Aasiyah. It's weird the way that they have the website made, but it's cool. My Instagram is @IamDr. Aasiyah, and connect with me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/Dr. Aasiyah. And so with that said, if there are some of you that want to stay around for like an extra few minutes, because I know I said we would get to answers and questions. Let me stop the share here. And let me put everybody in a gallery and unpin myself here. Oh, okay, remove spotlight, perfect. So we have some time. So if any of you want to ask some questions, I know Usman, you had a question earlier. You're welcome. You're welcome, Wendy. Thank you so much. Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much. So questions and answers, if anybody wants to go through that. Go for it, Usman. I know you said you wanted to ask a question.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure if anyone else had a question. My question was, and I think it's really cool, by the way, that the ASIA, the support, and all of those, the acronym corresponds with your name, which is really cool.
Yeah, we were kind of told to do that for our dissertation.
Oh, that was a requirement?
Well, not a requirement, but it was something Dr. Majidi told me. He was like, you should use your name as part of your model. And I was like, are you sure about that? So, but I did.
Well, I think it's really creative and makes it more memorable, the connection. You mentioned fear of success and fear of failure, and sort of one of the same in the same bullet point. I'm curious to hear more about like fear of success. Does that correspond to like someone feeling separate or alienated? What is that relating to? Because I mean, they're all constructs, right? Like failure, success, turn inside out. Success, one person's success might be someone else's failure. So what is your perspective on the fear of success and also, I guess, fear of failure and how that corresponds to IP?
Yeah, that's such a great question. It corresponds in the sense that most of the time, when I talked about those personalities, right, there's this fear of, well, if I don't do something, if I'm not doing something correctly, I'm going to fail at it. It means I'm not good at it. So that really corresponds to the feeling of not being good enough. Maybe you're not good enough in achieving this, and that's why you're going to fail, right? It's this inherent mindset that comes through. I know I've experienced that myself. And for sometimes the fear of success really kind of corresponds with that fear of failure, because sometimes people are afraid of success because they think that it might be something that they can't handle. They might not be able to handle all the success that's going to come their way for whatever their reasons are. And again, that correlates with imposter phenomenon, because sometimes people might be thinking, oh, well, I'm having to think about what I have to do when I've achieved success, and I don't even know if I'm even good enough to have this or to handle this. You see what I mean? So it kind of comes into that type of mindset. And there are studies done about this. There's been some research that I've been reading about with this. So it's been interesting. Thank you so much, Jeanette. Yeah, so I don't know if that answered your question, Esman, but I know it's kind of like my mindset of what I've gone through in my life.
Thank you, definitely relatable. So I think it has to do with corresponding to someone's sense of self-worth, and also if they see themselves as deserving of the success or fill in the blank.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thank you.
Exactly. It's exactly that. Yeah, yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
Question. So, we talked about having the support system, and, you have your dream team there, and you're there, you're also a part of the dream team. So your role is to give them support, but you're the one that does the majority of the encouraging. So you don't share what you're going through. You kind of hold it in. So then you find yourself not really getting that support because you just won't open up. How do you overcome not being able to open up to share your personal things, if I explain that right?
Yeah, that's a good question. It all comes down to trust. That's what it is. So you can be there for other people and be part of their dream team and support them, right? But when you're in your circle of influence, do you trust the people that are part of that circle for you to be able to open up to them, and for you to be able to trust them, to allow you to feel that you can open up to them?
I do trust them, but I feel like I have to be strong for them. So, they have enough going on, and maybe, what I'm going through is not as important as what they're dealing with. So if I let them see that weak side of me, then maybe I won't be as encouraging to them.
Yeah, you know what? I totally get what you mean. And I went through that. I had to kind of realize that we can't be in that way where we say, oh, well, they're not going to have time for us, because there are people. when I was going through what I was going through back in 2019, I had some friends that needed me as well. So even though I was going through it, I still made sure to open myself up to them. And you might have friends that are just like that. Maybe they're going through something in their life, but that doesn't mean that they're shutting everything down and saying, oh, I don't want to have anything to do with helping you. I don't have that kind of time. If you have somebody that says that, you might want to kind of think, is this someone I really want in my circle? Because if we're supposed to support each other, we need to be able to open up to each other. I've had friends that are going through a lot of major issues in their lives. They still dropped to come and help me or to be there for me. And when they need me, I come and I'm there for that. You know what I mean? It's kind of like vice versa. But then again, I'm also very choosy with the type of people I have in my life, because I know that I've been used in the past. And so I can't just drop everything to be for that one person, but that person can't be there for me, right? There has to be that. But if you're feeling that, oh, they're going to look at me as weak, that's not true. And I think maybe what you need to do is maybe you need to trust yourself to be able to express yourself to them without the thought of, oh, they're going to look at me as weak. Because you know what? They might look at you as a strong person. And I think a person who's able to be vulnerable is also a very strong person. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I hope that helped you out.
It did, because it's me. I know it's not them. It's me. Yeah. It's just not wanting to open up, just keeping everything to myself. So it's a me thing.
Something for you to kind of think about. Yeah, think about that, and think, like I said, with that list that you all created, think about that list and the people that you have in your life that you either want to have in your life, or maybe these are people that might just be acquaintances and not really part of your circle. Yeah. Any other questions? I see Samuel, thank you so much for coming. And it was so great to meet you over the weekend during our classes. And Jeanette, Dr. Jeanette, I'm so glad you were here. And I know I'm going to speak on the 28th for you. Yeah, so I'm so glad all of you came today. Now, I just want to, it is 6:40 and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So I do, so let me go ahead and end this. So Swellen, do you want to go ahead and end our workshop today?
Yeah, sure. It was a great workshop. Thank you so much, Dr. Ghazi. Thank you for everyone here to stay with us, for all your questions, for sharing your stories. And with that, I think we end our events for the month of women's. And so thank you so much. God bless you all.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. And if you all want to stay in touch with me, you can email me. I have my Pepperdine email. You can also stay in touch with me through LinkedIn. If you want my LinkedIn, if you want to subscribe to my email list, you can do that as well. I'm going to give you all my link tree. And oh no, I'm putting in the Pepperdine's link tree. I'm so used to the Pepperdine link tree now. So that's my link tree. So I have all my links there with my podcast and Instagram and LinkedIn. And if you want to just stay in touch with me, I would love to have you be in touch with me. And I know some of you are in touch. You've already connected with me in all of those platforms. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you, Usman. Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Malaysia. Thank you, Samuel. Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you, Laura and Lori and Swellen for all being here today.